Croatian MEP challenges the COVID narrative. Greetings and welcome to the Pandemic Podcast. My name is Astin-Gregory, your host. And today I am sharing the conversation that I had with Croatian MEP Ivan Vilibor Sinčić backstage at the International COVID Summit in Brussels. This conversation came following the full day of hearings at the European Parliament, where doctors and scientists and legal professionals gathered from all over the world to give evidence and testimony to be submitted to the European Commission. I had the great fortune of sitting down with this courageous MEP who's been challenging the narratives from the very get-go to hear how he believes this event will be a significant mark in the journey towards accountability. It's a fascinating conversation. I look forward to sharing this with you. Please do share this episode. We're ever facing censorship issues across all of the platforms, so it's vital that we have your help to make sure conversations like this are heard. Thanks very much. Enjoy this episode. This is the Pandemic Podcast.
I'm here in Brussels at this amazing event. Yesterday, we're at the European Parliament, where yourself and other MEPs had hosted us for an amazing series of talks. Would you tell us a little bit about how you got involved and why you think this is such a seminal moment in the journey so far?
Of course. The COVID crisis started somewhere in February or March in 2020. And in April, I understood that something was wrong. So I was trying to find some scientific data and to find some different opinions than the ones that we were given by the government, by the European Commission. So I did. So step by step, we were trying to figure out what we can do to put things back on the track, to dismantle this fake narrative they were spreading, all the fears and the nonsense. There were many completely stupid measures in Croatia. I won't go into that. So it was pointless. It was an insult to open mind, and we were doing whatever we could at that time. We were looking for ways to go to court. We did protests. We were gathering and the scientists. So step by step, things were going in the right direction. In September 2021, I had an opportunity to participate in the first International COVID Summit in Rome, in Italian Parliament. And this is now, in 2023, the third International COVID Summit. And I'm very happy to see that in these 2 or 3 years, it has been proven that we were right in so many things, that we were following the right track.
Yes.
I'm also very sad that many things are not still accepted by the institutions, such as European Commission or EMA, European Medicines Agency, or some committees in the European Parliament. It's not in the documents yet. Also the national governments. But you asked me, how did I get involved? Well, I entered the politics because of position Croatia is in, my home country. It is a very corrupt society, but I believe and feel we are going strongly forward. So I decided to do, what I consider to be honest and to help wherever I can help. So when the COVID crisis started, I have this, mathematical scientific mind. So I was checking the details, and in the details, I saw that some things are simply not true, not correct. So I had to find the answer, the solution, and then promote it. And little by little, in October 2021, a group of MEPs, there were 4 of us back then, started to speak out, and here we are now.
Yes. How was that received initially when you first started speaking out by your colleagues in Parliament?
Well, some were very happy. They were supporting us, but they were afraid to join us. Like, yes, you are right, we support you, but my party will make trouble for me, or if I come, things like that. Some were completely ignorant. Others were shocked. Oh, what are these people saying? That the media is telling us something else, that the agencies are telling us something else. So there was a division of opinion, but it's normal in such a situation like that. But now when their official narrative has collapsed, when they have accepted that the lockdowns were completely useless, even harmful, that masks were useless, and that the fear campaigns are extremely damageable. We had testimonies, not just yesterday, but there were some scientists on our COVID committee in the parliament testifying that there was a long list of damage, especially done to children with lockdowns. So much of what we were saying has been proven right, and it is accepted now. But our job is still not finished. There is a lot of work to be done, and we will stay on this path. I didn't. In a way, I was, sad that it has to be me. I'm not a doctor. I'm not a lawyer. I'm an electrical engineer. But it has to be me to do this. But I did it as a politician, and I did it the best way I thought it was possible. We organized a large number of events. This is by far the biggest and the best, I would say, the best one. We had amazing testimonies yesterday, and with all the findings and all the raw data, and very good people from all around the world who have outstanding careers, outstanding results in the field. And all these findings we will, as I said, we will give it to the European institutions. If they fail to accept it, if they fail to comment on that, then we will have to put more and more pressure on them.
Yes. Do you think an event like this can help break through to the wider political community, both at the European Parliament level, but also at the national level? How can this contribute to those education of the wider population of MPs?
It will help, of course. Mm-hmm. It will move things in the right direction.
Yeah.
But as I have learned in my political career, great changes don't come all of a sudden. It's a process. It's some kind of mental evolution.
Yes.
And it will take perhaps several years before there is also a change in the politics.
Yes.
The politics, the elected representatives are often among the last. The majority of them are often among the last who accept something as a fact. I have also seen it in Croatian Parliament. The things that were heresy in 2011 when we started on the street were not heresy in 2015 when I was first elected to the Croatian Parliament. And now in 2023, it's like a dogma, like
yes.
Mr. Franklin said, American scientists, all things start as a heresy and end as a dogma. So I have seen the world change. I have seen Croatian politics change. I have seen the mental circuits of people and politicians change. And I have seen that heresy has been accepted as truth because it has very strong scientific foundation.
It must feel that is happening all over again now with COVID story.
It is very, in a personal way, it is very satisfying.
Yes.
Very satisfying.
And what do you think the steps forward are from here?
Well, we intend to organize another International COVID Summit in autumn, in fall in Bucharest, in Romania. It would be very helpful if at least several governments in Europe, or perhaps a new president or a governor in the United States, as we see some changes in that direction, would also use their position not just to change the policies, but also to request accountability from all those who were doing their job in a very wrong way, who caused many people to get injured or even die. Accountability of these people must be demanded, and unless there is some kind of consequences, they are going to do it again. They're going to do it again. I myself was chair of the investigative committee in Croatian National Parliament, regarding the Institute of Immunology. It was one of the best Croatian scientific research institutions, but it was destroyed during 30 years because of bad management and corruption, but also intentionally because it was competition to big pharmaceutical companies which are now selling Croatia their products, but we would have been producing them ourselves. So I was chair of this investigative committee. I learned a great deal of things there that are very useful to me now. And you can see the pattern. You can see the pattern. Unless there are consequences, the people are gonna repeat things all over again. Among other things, we were investigating in this committee the swine flu in 2009, and it was similar pattern like with the corona crisis. They were trying to make a huge deal out of that, but it failed eventually, thanks to very brave people who were opposing that policies at that time. And they failed then. They were not sanctioned, the people who were pushing this development. So they did it now again. They will probably try to repeat it again because it is extremely not just profitable, but it is also it gives them more power.
Indeed.
If a Croatian government brings a new law that gives them more power, it's good for them, you know. For example, Croatian government should have lost the elections in 2020, but then there was Corona, and they had the control of the media and control of the health policies, and it helped a lot of governments to keep their position in the world, I think with the exception of Donald Trump. But in Europe,
yes,
it helped a lot many national governments to strengthen their control, their grip over the society, and to further exploit it. Just a few days ago in Croatia, there was a huge scandal that a family member of a politician was involved in the procurement of PCR tests, and things like that are coming out everywhere. And this is corona profiteering, and it's terrible. We want accountability on every level. The ones who were involved in corruption on low level, some were in procurement, up to those who are involved in corruption on high levels, such as Ursula von der Leyen, who personally agreed the procurement deals with Pfizer and other pharmaceutical companies. And now they are forcing Croatia and other European countries to buy even more vaccines that nobody wants, which are extremely ineffective, which are far away from what was promised in 2020. They were praising it as the best product in the world, and then we saw it's something completely different. Regarding the side effects, and every product has side effects, the side effects is something they are trying to completely ignore. Even by the medical agency, even though it's their own data, they do the vigilance, they do the register of the side effects. They are trying to ignore it completely. It's ridiculous. I mean, why are you ignoring it? Every possible medicine in history has some kind of side effects, big or smaller. You need to accept it as a fact, as a chemical, scientific fact. Why are you ignoring it? You're abandoning the scientific principles. You're making this into a religion, a cult. You're making this into politics, and not science as it should be.
I agree. Now, you've talked about accountability and consequences.
Yeah.
You know, many people are talking about post-war type tribunals that have occurred in the past, like Nuremberg. What do you think, what form could it take? Because you've articulated something I think is important there, because there's different layers of corruption and there's different layers of involvement in the entire process. And there is obviously the central institutions and some of the key actors that have been involved within the corporations, the pharmaceutical industry. What various forms of accountability do you think would be required? I think there's almost an assumption that there could be one tribunal that will solve everything, but I think it's more complex than that. So I'm curious to know what your views are on.
It would be the simplest thing to do, one tribunal, but it cannot be done without the support of at least one major world country, like either United States or is it France or China or anybody else, unless some of them says, yes, we want this to be sanctioned on a global level and we want to make an example, it won't happen. In the meantime, until something like that happens, we have different levels of courts and we should use all of them. Croatian Constitutional Court is basically elected by the ruling party. And it's basically a political court, so you cannot expect too much from them. But Bosnia and Herzegovina, I don't know if you are aware of this, their constitutional court made a ruling twice that both the digital green certificates are unconstitutional and vaccine mandates are unconstitutional. And while explaining this decision, this ruling, they said that you cannot give this power to decide on such measures to a narrow parts of the executive power. Also, while explaining this ruling, they said that it is in violation of the European Charter of Fundamental Rights and also the Nuremberg Code, because you cannot force anybody to take any kind of medical product or therapy without their consent. And so they mention Nuremberg Code in their ruling. Also, we have a ruling by the Spanish court, which was done by. It was filed by my colleagues from Spain. That they won in the court in the end, saying that the lockdown in Spain was unconstitutional. So we have legal victories such as this. That's good.
They're emerging, and you're seeing in more and more countries that are following suit from what
there are a lot of lawsuits now that are somewhere in the process. I don't know when will they be finished, this year, next year, 2 years. But we should use every possible tool we have. We use science, experts, and medical doctors, such as we did yesterday to fight. We fight together. We also use the courts. We use the political platform. We use the media, free media such as yourself. So every possible tool that we have in our arsenal, we must use. We also do protests and whatever we can do at any possible point of time.
Yes, so the legal challenges are a big part of this. Now, what about political transformation? Obviously, we've seen Robert Kennedy Jr. standing now in the United States. Do you see hope for political leaders emerging like yourself who are willing to challenge the status quo and try to do things differently? Do you see that as a key element of the path ahead? And if yes, what needs to happen in order to support that moving forward?
Of course, I'm very happy that Mr. Kennedy, I met him in Switzerland, will be running for the position of the President of the United States. I wish him luck in this campaign. I'm also very happy that there are politicians such as Mr. DeSantis of Florida, who had a completely different approach during the COVID crisis. He's the other party, the Republican Party. As I said, we need to fight on all levels.
Yes.
The best thing would be to make some kind of global social and political movement, because this is a global problem. The corruption is global, the WHO and everything else. This is also very hard to achieve. Until we have a common global platform that demands accountability, we need to settle for our national representatives, and wherever there is somebody who wants to use these legislative tools of their national parliament and government to demand accountability from all the persons and institutions that were doing their job in a wrong way, even in a criminal way. I think that should be supported, and that we should be networking, and eventually somebody will come to such a position or is already in such a position. I'm very optimistic about this, but without the political level, it cannot be solved.
That's right.
All the levels, as I mentioned, the media level, the activist level, the legal level, expert level, scientific, all are important. But without the political level, things will not be finalized.
Yes.
So we need to also be active on this level. And this is what we are doing. We are
Yes,
European
indeed.
Parliament politicians.
Now, final question for you, because in the United Kingdom, there's a widespread political apathy, and this existed prior to
Also
COVID.
in Croatia.
Yeah. So if you look at people who are actually members of a political party, it's somewhere between 1% and 2% of the population. So on one hand, we're talking about the corporations and these centralized powers that have amassed such power. Yet on the other hand, the people power that is usually exercised through the political machine has been decreasing for so long now. I was going to ask you, how is it in Croatia, and do you see it changing?
In Croatia, we have a very bad political system. I could speak for days about it. For example, in 2010, the Constitutional Court warned the Parliament that some electoral units are much bigger. But the Parliament did nothing. Only now, after the last census of the population of Croatia, when they see, oh my God, the difference is so big, and we also filed our own lawsuit, and they mentioned it in the ruling and the explanation. They have declared the election law unconstitutional. Now a new one must be made, and there are many examples of Croatian political system being bad. I know that some of my colleagues here also have complaints about their own political system. Basically, in Croatia, some members of the parliament can be elected with just a few hundred votes, while some are being elected with tens of thousands of votes.
Yes, right.
So it's very unfair, and we are fighting for the equal right to vote. Once we put that in order, we have much better chances of proper and democratic government in Croatia. It would be, as I said, essential to have this political level put in order and used as the people want it. But yes, because of such irregularities, because of all the corruption that is not being sanctioned for many years. By the way, just to mention, our ruling party has been declared by the Supreme Court of Croatia a few years ago to be a criminal organization. Yeah, but doesn't matter. They are still
small
in power. Yeah, they are still in power. So everything I mentioned and many other things are simply eroding the will of the people to be involved in politics, in any kind of social change. So the turnout at the elections has been slowly decreasing for the last 30 years. We are trying to change that, and I know that people, if they see hope, they will vote. They will come out and they will participate. I have seen this on a local level. When you have a good project, when you have a good candidate, when you have a good plan, the turnout is twice the turnout that is a regular turnout. So I know the mechanics of politics. It can be done, but it's very hard to do it because you need a lot of people on the ground. You need also the media, but it can be done.
Absolutely.
The people just function in a way that unless they see hope, they won't engage themselves.
Yes.
They do want to do it, but you have to offer them an opportunity to do it.
Indeed. If COVID hadn't happened, what do you think you'd be doing today?
If COVID hadn't happened, I would be dealing with waste management policy in the parliament. I'm still doing it now, but I'm also doing the COVID policy and the health policy. Since I'm a member of ENVI, Committee for Environment, Public Health and Food Safety in the European Parliament. I would be focused on some other things, because also in waste management in Croatia, we also have very bad projects and bad policies, and it is our responsibility not only of Croatian government, but of the Commission. They are doing some things wrong, so I'm also working on that. That's something I would be doing, and what I am doing in parallel with other issues.
What would you say the biggest impact that this period of time, this COVID chapter, has had on you personally as an individual?
What?
What's the biggest impact?
What's the biggest impact
on you as a person, as a human?
What's the biggest impact? I think that this the WEF thing from Davos. I mean, they have been here for a long time, but who are you? You know, who the hell elected you? Who are you to dictate basically the entire world, but especially Europe, what to do, what not to do? What is this? You know, who are you all of a sudden? And how did you penetrate, as you say, all the cabinets of all the governments? And how can you claim that sovereign nations are obsolete? I mean, are you insane? Am I dreaming? So this moment when I understood that they're not hiding themselves anymore, and that many policies that are being implemented come from them or through them, from somebody else or somewhere else, was perhaps the most important moment during the COVID crisis. Yeah.
Yes. Well, it sounds to me like you're driven by a sense of purpose now, a sense of integrity and justice that was clearly already there in your political path up to now, but it sounds to me that there's a real renewed sense of wanting to create change. So
yes,
you can see that for everything you've done this last few days. So thank you so much, and I appreciate you being with me here on the Pandemic Podcast. It's very kind of you to share your time.
Thank you very much for the opportunity to have this interview. And since we are in Brussels, if you can enjoy the sun, it's not very common here.
Yes, very good. It's like in the UK. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for tuning in to today's episode of the Pandemic Podcast. If you'd like more conversations like this, please do join our newsletter at danastingregory.com/pandemic. We've got a wonderful conversation coming up with Dr. Jessica Rose, which was also recorded at the International COVID Summit, where she talked about the things that are in the vials that should not be in the vials. It's a very revealing conversation. Watch out for this one. Now, if you'd like to be part of a private online community of changemakers who are tackling issues like this, then I encourage you to visit weareelevate.org, join our community, and be part of the conversation. Thanks again for tuning in. My name is Dan Astin-Gregory. This is the Pandemic Podcast.